All right. Good morning and welcome to Agribusiness Media webinars on the business of farming. My name is Rawlings, your host, and I am with Agribusiness Media. And it is my pleasure to welcome you today for a free training on sugar bean farming. So we are excited to have partnered with SeedCo and the ZFC to bring you experts' insights on the business of sugar bean farming. So today we will look at variety selection, planting, good agronomic practices, weed, pests, and disease management. And we will also look deep into the art of soil health. So this session is going to be interactive, so please do prepare your questions for our question and answer segment after all the presenters have spoken. And this will help us to make the most of this opportunity to grow together. So as they say, the seed you plant today determines the harvest of tomorrow. So our first presenter is Dior Pote from SeedCo, and he will enlighten us on variety selection, planting, and the good agronomic practices that is for sugar bean farming. Dior has extensive experience in working with farmers as well as helping them to optimize their yields. We are excited to hear from him. Dior, over to you.
Good morning to you, farmers. My name is Dior Pote. I'm the head of Agronomy and Extension Services for SeedCo Zimbabwe. I'm quite happy that we are starting a sugar bean season with rainfall. This is the 2024-2025 season where we are in the process of sugar bean production. So this module, we are going to be discussing the variety selection, planting, and the good agronomic practices that can be done on sugar bean production. Oh, by the way, SeedCo is celebrating its 85-year anniversary. So there are going to be very exciting moments for us. So we are in a jovial mood and we are quite excited about this development where we are going to be discussing around the past 85 years and 85 years on the beyond picture. So our presentation layout, we're going to be discussing some elements in agriculture that's to do with good agronomic practices that affect beans or that have an effect on beans. This is to do with soil conditioning, land preparation, fertilizer management, weed control, and pest control. So at this moment, we are diving into the greater chunk of our presentation. You know, with crop production, there are various elements that we have to look into. That includes the genetics, the soil, weather, and the management. So it's called the G by E by A. That's to do with genetics, the environment, the management in the soil. The soil is part of the environment. So all these constitute to the yield and constitute to our crop production. So we have to make sure that all these aspects are in line and your genetics has to be on point. You should have the varieties that are drought tolerant, that are disease tolerant, and that can sustain and be able to produce good amounts of yield that are needed by the farmer and that are good for the market. Then on our land preparation, we have to make sure that our land preparation is supporting our cropping plan. For example, sugar beans is a crop that requires a lot of good land preparation. We have to make sure that our land preparation has to be on point. Sugar bean, unlike any other crop, it has to be planted or it has to be put in a land where there's good land preparation. In this regard, what we are trying to say is that the kind of germination that sugar bean go through is different from that is done by maize. So we have to make sure that the seed bed is really on point. Our sequences should not be stopped. That is to do with plowing and following up with the chisel plow, and we have to rip and do some disking and rolling. All this is done to make sure that we've got a fine seed bed. In the same vein, we've some disadvantages that we can find by doing so, which include destruction of the soil structure and increase in soil erosion. So when the soil gets eroded, that means our topsoil is affected and some of the nutritional components are washed away, which we're going to assist the bean to grow to physiological maturity. Then with some of the practice conservation tillage, whereby there's minimum tillage and less pulverization of soil. One has to do this with extra caution considering the type of germination that sugar beans go through. So sugar beans need that kind of soil that is kind of that is more microsifted to an extent that it can germinate without facing some challenges or some hurdles. So here in Zimbabwe, we have what we call some agroecological zones that include zone 1, region 1, up to region 5. With the current and the reclassification done by Raymond Mgandani and friends, we're seeing that region 5 is split up to 5A and 5B. In region 1 and region 2, there's 2A and 2B. So sugar bean can be grown in any region, but considering the fact that it should be grown where we can get the real amounts of rain that will allow and that will sustain the crop up to physiological maturity. To those who are in regions where you cannot really sustain it, you can use irrigation. It can be planted under irrigation. So in region 1, region 2, and some parts of region 3, sugar bean can be planted in region 4. It can be planted around January for up to February, depending with the area that you are planting it, so that by March, April, you are able to harvest your sugar beans. So before you do anything, you have to make sure that you select the varieties with some high yielding varieties with good defensive agronomic traits that adapt so well with climatic and abiotic conditions. So the amount of and distribution of rainfall usually determine the kind of variety that you intend to choose. Some varieties are long season varieties, some are short season varieties. So with your area, and with the distribution, with the guidance that you are receiving from the Met department, stand guided when selecting a variety. Get a variety that can grow and reach physiological maturity based on the seasonal forecast. Stand guided when selecting a variety. Just don't get a variety which will not see to it when there will be an early cutoff of the rain. So the length of the growing season usually help us in variety selection and our altitude and air temperature. What it means is that there's a 1% increase in terms of temperature, increase with a degree in altitude. So we have to make sure that our choices have to align with the altitude and our air temperature to get the soil fertility and fertilizer application. All these methods can determine the type of variety that we intend to select. Because some of the varieties, they grow herbaceously more than other varieties, so that has an effect on the kind of fertilizer application methods the material will be using. And our plant density and stability, so we need to consider that as well. This was given specifically as an example on grain, whereby some of maize, we use it for green meal, some for silage, and for beans, we usually take grain of beans. So the plant density is a range that is around 177,000 to 200,000 plants per hectare. Then occurrence of diseases. When we are selecting varieties, we must check our areas and we must check the occurrences of diseases in our areas. This can allow us to select varieties with a less tolerance to the diseases that happen in our areas. Then on sugar bean, SeedCo is the best genetics in the market right now as we speak. If you have noticed that SeedCo is got over 4 varieties and more are coming in the coming year. So we have got AC Bound, which takes around 85 to 90 days to reach physiological maturity, and the yield potential of AC Bound is between 2 tons to 2.5 tons. We've got AC Sharp, which follow the same trend, AC Gadra, which is our earliest maturing variety, which matures in 65 days and give us a yield potential of 2.5 tons. Then we've got AC Ukulinga. AC Ukulinga is with a yield advantage. There's some yield leadership there where it can give us up to 3 tons a hectare under good agronomic practices. So what matters now is that we've got the good genetics, but we need to make sure that our agronomy is to be on point for us to achieve what we intend to achieve. So as a farmer, you have to make sure that your soils are on point. You have to improve your soil physical, biological, and chemical properties. This can be done by not burning stover. This can be done by the use of regenerative agriculture, where we allow stover to decay in the soil. We allow the retention of carbon so that we increase our carbon to nitrogen ratio. So this will increase the ability of the soil, and it will increase our CEC ratio, that is to do with some cation exchange capacity of the soil. And we have to make sure that we have to retain the soil organic matter for an increased soil fertility, and this will allow the soil structure to be maintained, and this will allow the soil, the roots to grow without any impediments in the soil. So it is very important for one to, before planting, one has to plant with effective rains, very effective rains, so that the bean seed do not have hurdles when it is about to germinate. So the total amount of rainfall is a net effect on the product, on the germination of the seed. So when you are planting beans, make sure that the moisture there is very welcoming and is very enough to allow the germination of sugar beans. And we have to make sure that there should be very, very good seed and soil contact, considering that sugar beans find it very difficult to germinate, unlike maize, unlike any other crop. So we have to make sure that our production plan, our tillage purposes allow us to have a good fine tooth. Then for soil preparation, the soil needs to be plowed, needs to be ribbed to a depth of 300 millimeters, then digged to a good tilth. This soil needs to be firm at planting, and a level seedbed should be prepared so as to ensure germination. A level firm seedbed ensure good surface contact between the soil and the seed. So this allows effective and proper germination. So our germination can go beyond 90% and above. So the plant depth is to be around 2.5 to 4.5 centimeters below the soil surface. This can only be achieved by setting the planter correctly. If you are using hand planting, you have to make sure that there's a bit of some human calibration. People who are doing the planting, you have to be maintaining the 2.5 to 4 centimeters. So the time of planting of sugar beans, I'm sure we are all ready and we are set to plant our sugar beans. So with the effective rains that we have received here in January, and we're expecting the same in February, this is the moment whereby we are supposed to be planting. So generally, we come in with our planting of sugar beans in January, early of January to late February in the high veld, and right through to mid-August, beans can be planted, and in the low veld from those frost-free areas. So the soil temperature should be just above 13 degrees for optimum germination results. This will allow an optimum germination. So then the dried bean, sugar bean, requires a warm climate where the temperatures should be around 18 centimeters to 24 centimeters. It is very ideal to maintain the population of around 180 to 200,000 plants per hectare of sugar beans. This will guarantee you a yield benefit of around 2.5 to 3 tons a hectare. So generally, this plant population will give you the best of results under good soil pH of around 5.5 to 5.8. Beans is very sensitive to acidic soils. So one has to make sure that your pH is on point. You have to make sure that you correct your pH. If your pH is very, very alkaline, try to regulate it. And if your pH is way, way too acidic, try to regulate it so that it falls within the range of 5.5 to 5.8. If the pH is not at these levels, then apply lime. I'm sure the fertilizer teams will come and assist us in terms of lime. They'll tell us the right amount of lime and the quantities and the type of lime that needs to be put in the field. So when establishing sugar bean, you have to make sure that your plant population can only be achieved if you have a spacing of around 5 to 10 centimeters from one plant to the other plant, and from one row to other row, at least from 37.5 to 45 centimeters, we can maintain that. So this can give us the right amount of population. Together, our depth should not exceed 5 centimeters, considering that sugar beans go through epigeal germination. So I'm going to go a bit deeper, explaining the issues to do with germination of sugar beans. Sugar beans go through what we call epigeal germination, whereby the radicle emerges from the seed and the hypocotyl elongates, rising from the cotyledons. So this will make sure that this epicotyl will remain on top of the ground. So the cotyledons may then expand and function photosynthetically as normal leaves. So this process, when it's happening, it's a very tender process. We have to make sure that the soil is having a very fine tooth so that these cotyledons don't break. We don't want to plummet our populations because of this breaking of the cotyledons. So our soil management, our soil preparation has to be on point. So the type of germination in which the hypocotyl elongates and rapidly and it grows upwardly, we have to make sure let's control and let's make sure that the cotyledons are not moved and cotyledons are not affected by all these operations that are happening above ground, because what happens is that the cotyledons come up from the soil and they'll be above the ground. Sugar beans needs fertilizer as any other crop, so we have to make sure that our pH is on point, which is within the range of 5.5 to 5.8. Beans are very sensitive to acidic soils, so we have to apply lime if there's need. We have to make sure that when you're planting beans is a nitrogen fixation legume. We have to understand that it fixes nitrogen, but safe to say that it still requires it's the Basal top dressing, the Basal fertilizer, which is around 250 kgs, is a general recommendation. This can be applied through a fertilizer spreader, a Vicon, or put it in rows or through the planter. This can be done on sugar beans. And as well, we can top dress our sugar beans using our AN around 50 to 100 kgs, depending with the nitrogen requirement of the soil. We don't want to promote rank growth of sugar bean, so we have to regulate our nitrogen amounts. So if the previous crop residues has been plowed and digged in there could be some extra nitrogen that might be needed. That's why we are saying you have to come in with some AN or some maybe just few amounts of AN, so that we make sure that there's some decomposition of the material. Then discuss with your area agronomist or any agronomist to do with fertility management, especially agronomist agronomist from fertilizer companies. They know better and they understand with the nutritional requirements of plants, so they have to be part of the story. They have to be part of your story as a farmer, because beans are not capable of satisfying all their nitrogen requirements through feed section. So the need for basal fertilizer with good nitrogen levels it should be there. As we proceed with our bean crop, now we are at a point whereby we need to manage weeds. So weeds are very problematic. The bean crop should not be surrounded by weeds. So it is very important in growing sugar beans that all the bean plants do not compete with weeds. They have to grow without weeds surrounding them. And this was, when they grow with weeds, the weeds will overshadow the bean crop. This will cause a lower productivity in terms of the bean crop, because photosynthesis and other processes, there are some metabolic processes get affected by these weeds, because weeds compete for nutrients, compete for pests, compete for water. It is very imperative for one to come up with a solid and robust weed management process. So there are various ways whereby we can do some weeding. Some can do hand weeding by use of walls. The picture there shows a good weed management plan which was done through the pre-emergent herbicide which was applied there. You see in that field specifically, metallochlor has been applied and Roundup. It cleared all the weeds that were present, and the bean crop managed to grow without having any hurdles. In this regard, we would advise farmers to select herbicides based on these factors. That is to do with weed spectrum, the type of weeds that are there in the field, and the stage of control. Is it a pre-emergent or a post-emergent herbicide? The rotation plan, what our cropping calendar, our cropping program, it gives us a guideline on the selection of our herbicides. And together, we have to see that the cost, you should do a cost-benefit analysis to see the amount of herbicides or the level of herbicides that grow in the field, in what kind of a herbicide that can be bought to eliminate these, which is cost-effective. So I would advise farmers to use these the selection factors when one wants to select herbicides. So the effective use of herbicides depend on the interpretation as well of the label. You have to understand the label. So I would advise farmers to contact various agrochemicals and companies, especially for more details and more depth around the weed management. So the pest, we have to come in and scout for pests. There are several pests that are found in the soil. Some are soil-borne pests, some are above ground pests. One has to come in and scout for pests. So there it's a broad spectrum of pests that covers some. They come in maize, some they come in beans. Most of the crops, the white grubs, the cutworms, they affect our crops in the soil. Some they'll be overwintering. They'll affect our next crop. So the pest management has to be done so that you eliminate the pest even for the current crop and for the follow-up crop. We have to make sure that the pests are not overwintering in the soil. So for pest control, we have seen that bean get affected by bean stem maggot. With the bean stem maggot, you see there's more or less like wilting of the bean plant. The rate is 250 ml per hectare. That depends with the supplier of the chemicals, but that was a basic recommendation. One of the color is orange, the other one is black. Flowers are the ones that will develop into the pods. The pods will develop into the bean grain. So we have to protect our flowers at all cost. In bean, we find ourselves getting some leaf eaters, a negative net effect on the sugar bean. It won't have enough time to do what is called photosynthesis, and it would not have more opportunity to do some what we call photo accumulation, whereby the photo accumulation will result in formation of the fruits, the bean fruit, the bean grain. So the leaf eaters have got a negative net effect to our final yield, so they have to be eliminated. We have to get through it as we scout our plants. When we scout, we know with our threshold levels when we need to come in with the Volstar or other chemical that eliminate the leaf eaters. Bean as a plant that is grown in rain season gets affected by fungal diseases, so we have to come in with some fungicides and some curative fungicides as well. As a farmer, you have to make sure that you have got some water conservation techniques, so that when we've got some mid-season drought and some mid-season dry spells, our water is conserved to a point that bean will be able to access the water during the dry spell, because it can happen at a very critical growth stage. That could be flowering stage, that could be bean formation stage, pod formation stage. So we have to come in with some tight ridges, spot walling. It's very important as well, depending with the nature and your production way. Some are doing it on smaller areas. They can come in with some mulching. It is very important to conserve water. So from SeedCo, we strongly believe that for the past 85 years, SeedCo has been going around addressing challenges that farmers are facing. All these challenges could be climate variability, challenges to do with low yields. So SeedCo has got a solution for every farmer and for every situation. For the past 85 years, SeedCo has revolved around it as it was partnering with farmers by producing the high good seed with high yielding seed. So with yield leadership, and these varieties have got good aspects, that is really yield and drought tolerance. So as you can see, yield is determined usually by the right seed. So the right seed can only come from SeedCo, and the good agronomic practices can only as well come from SeedCo as well. SeedCo has got a dotted network of agronomists dotted around the country, and each has got what we call an application, Sydney app, whereby a farmer can go and get some assistance if the agronomists are far, if the agronomists are not within the scope. You can get some assistance from the Sydney app. So even you can as well come onto the website. There are some social media platforms where we interact with farmers, and all the farmers who have got questions around the production of sugar beans, we get to discuss these matters, get help from SeedCo, experienced agronomist and the technical team that are there to help you. As you can see from this slide, that's a very good and a very healthy Ukulinga crop, and there's Ukulinga, there's Bound, there's Gadra. So the good genetics and good agronomic practices, which include your rotations, your disease management, your weather, and the herbicide, that is to do with weed management, it has to be on point. So this allow you to have the best yield. So there are 1,000 reasons for low yields, but there are only 2 reasons for one to have high yields. That is SeedCo seed and adopting the good agronomic practices. So for today, I think this was our opportunity to discuss a bit around sugar bean. We are going to be launching more of webinars where we are going to be discussing in depth of sugar bean production, that is from other stages. But today we managed to have our snippet where we touch bits and pieces of sugar bean production so that you get guidance and you get some guideline. Feel free to reach out on our website, that is www.seedcogroup.com. There you can get assistance, and from our team that is dotted around the country, feel free, from our agronomists who are in various regions in the country, reach out to them so that you get all the assistance.
All right. Many thanks, Dior, for such a wonderful presentation and those valuable insights. Sugar bean farming truly starts with choosing the right variety and planting it correctly. As we continue, remember that a healthy soil is the foundation of a productive farm. Next, we have Dzidzai Munhutu, an agronomist with the ZFC. Dzidzai will guide us through weed, pest, and disease management, and he will also touch on soil health. Dzidzai, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Farmer Rollins, and good day to you, dear farmers. So this is going to be the layout of my presentation. We're going to start off with the basic introduction to do with the sugar bean. With the basic introduction to do with sugar bean production, and we also move on to nutrition options, that your top dressing, Basal, and your Foliar fertilizer options. We move on to weed management, disease management, and insect pest management. Basically, sugar bean is a profitable crop, which is profitable. Is a profitable crop which most farmers tend to grow during this time of the year. Beginning, say, end of December, I was moving around the farms and seeing quite a number of farmers doing their plantations, doing their preparation for the sugar bean. And indeed, it is quite an advantage that we have received some good amounts of rain, which has made it quite easy for land preparation for most of our farmers. So maybe it is important for us to highlight to farmers that sugar beans, they require a soil pH range of 5.5 to 6.5, and of course, well-drained soils that allow water to drain through, so that you don't have cases of waterlogging, which then tend to affect the germination and growth of your sugar bean. But basically, in terms of the temperature ranges, you would want to plant your sugar bean in an environment where the temperatures range from at least a minimum of 13 to 15 degrees Celsius. This is the minimum which is required for the optimum germination and establishment of the crop. Meaning that for those farmers that establish their crop around August, definitely around the August period, or maybe late July, you need to be in an area where you've got such minimum temperatures. But of course, for us to be able to get a good soil seed contact, you need to have prepared the land quite optimally to get the fine tilled. I'm sure that my earlier presenter colleague has highlighted these factors before. Moving on, the Basal dressing options that we have got at ZFC Limited is your usual compound D, which is your maize fat. The NPK formulation is the 7-14-7. Generally with the maize fat, you would require an application rate of maybe 200 to 300 kgs per hectare. But I know for most of our farmers, they use 250 kgs. Then for the double D, since it has doubled the nutritional values, you would require exactly half of that, meaning that we'll be applying about 125 to 150 kgs per hectare. Then we move on to the high D, which you would then use to apply around 200 kgs per hectare, which is your 10-20-10, and your cereal blend, which is your 6-23-23 in terms of its formulation. For this one, you would also require 150 kgs. But I would also want to reiterate to you farmers that it is important for you to be able to be guided by, in terms of the nutritional requirements of your crop because of the soil analysis. We provide that service at ZFC Limited, and it would be best for you to be able to put in your plant, your crop beforehand when you have analyzed your soils. And moving on to the top dressing options, you've got your ammonium nitrate, which has got 34.5% nitrogen, and also the calcium ammonium nitrate. This one has got a lower percentage of nitrogen, which is 26%, but now it has an added advantage of your calcium carbonate at 18%. So you tend to get a bit of some liming effect when you apply your calcium ammonium nitrate. So when you apply 150 kgs of ammonium nitrate, as your top dressing fertilizer. At week 3 after crop emergence, you would then consider your calcium ammonium nitrate at 200 kgs per hectare. So the prices are quite favorable. You can consider using the calcium ammonium nitrate as your top dressing option instead of the ammonium nitrate. Then for the foliar fertilizer, we have got a range of products, but I've spelled out 2 which you can then use to supplement your nutrition to the sugar bean crop. Basically, what we mean by foliar fertilization, we mean that you are applying your fertilizer or your nutrients through the leaves and stems of your crop, and you, in a way, you are circumventing absorption of the roots or absorption of nutrients through the roots. So on top of the NPK that these are trace elements, these foliar fertilizers contain, we will also have a number of trace elements that are contained within these foliar fertilizers. These include your magnesium, copper, iron, molybdenum, etc., depending on the product. But now we are looking, the label that I've just shown or displayed on the screen is for a product called Foliar 15. As you can see, it is written that it contains soluble major and minor trace elements in concentrated form, which means that you've got quite a number of nutrients that are pegged in that bottle, that when you apply, you will notice some significant results. What this does is that it satisfies your crop, it satisfies the crop's hidden hunger. Crops also tend to have certain cravings for certain elements. One crop might be in craving for iron, it might be in craving for the zinc, etc. So once that is supplied, you then tend to have a crop that grows well or optimally, because the nutrients will be supplied in optimum forms and they will be well balanced. The other product I've highlighted is called Quick Grow Plus. Quick Grow Plus contains your NPK in the formulation of 20, meaning that it is high in nitrogen and also high in your potash. But on top of that, it also has your trace elements, the copper, the boron, the zinc, manganese, and your molybdenum. These foliar fertilizers can be applied from week 2, week 3 after your crop is emerged well, for as long as it has developed sufficient canopy. You should be able to apply your foliar fertilizers, because those the foliage will then be able to intercept the nutrients that you'll be applying. So you dissolve these and mix them with your spraying water, and then you apply. Some would ask if these foliar fertilizers can be tag mixed with certain products. Yes, some of them can be tag mixed, but it is important for the farmer to understand the nature of the fungicide or insecticide which they'll be applying. But usually we would recommend that you apply your foliar fertilizers together, maybe with your fungicide rather than with an insecticide, because your fertilizers and your insecticides tend to scorch your crop if you do not adhere to the stipulated application instructions. So you need to work hand in glove with an agronomist so that they will be able to advise you in terms of the compatibility of both products. So the foliar fertilizers, basically, they are good because they then tend to also increase your pest and disease resistance, because a well-fed crop does not easily fall for or is not easily damaged by pests and diseases. So it would be good to apply the foliar fertilizers as it grows. Moving on to weed management, that sugar bean crop that you are seeing has been applied by a pre-emergence herbicide called Maricho. As you can see, the soil, it is quite moist. As you can see on the leaves that there are some soil droplets there, meaning that the crop just received some rain since the onset. So the conditions that are currently prevailing right now are the same conditions that are required for any pre-emergence herbicide to work optimally. For the pre-emergence herbicides options that we've got your metallaclo, and you also have your ambush. The ambush contains your flumethylam and your S-metallaclo. Both of these products, they control your broadleaf weeds and grass weeds at weed seed stage, not when the weeds have emerged. So for us to be able to get that kind of weed control, we need to ensure that there is good moisture in the soil, and then we apply the pre-emergence herbicide maybe within say 1 to 3 days of planting the crop, because sugar beans are quick to emerge, and you do not want to apply your pre-emergence herbicides when they have started emerging. So maybe it's also for us to iterate to the farmers that you can mix your metallaclo or your ambush with glyphosate, which is a pre-plant cleanup herbicide. Glyphosate is non-selective. It tends to scorch everything which it gets into contact with. So when you've got some emerged weeds, glyphosate then burns down those emerged weeds, and then your metallaclo and your ambush, they then control the weed seeds within the soil. Moving on to the post-emergency herbicides, you'd want to apply your bentazone as a contact herbicide for the control of your broadleaf weeds. Bentazone is a contact herbicide. Therefore, it is important to ensure that you do thorough coverage. So rather than doing your 200 liters per hectare, you'd want to apply it in a minimum volume of 250 liters per hectare. So this means to say the 3 liters of bentazone are mixed together with 3 liters of your bentazone. The 3 liters of bentazone are mixed together with 350 liters of water, so that you adequately cover your weeds. Bentazone is selective. It does not burn down your crop. You might have a bit of scorching here and there, but it does not have any impact in terms of the growth of your sugar bean. So once the rains have been received and you have applied your foliar fertilizers, the crop will quickly recover, and you will not have any issues that might affect your yield. So bentazone is your deal to do with the broadleaf weeds. But to do with the grass weeds, kapinga, bushgrass, you need to apply the fluasphop. This is a very good option for the control of many grass weeds that tend to grow in the sugar beans. But now, your application ranges from 1 to 8 liters per hectare, depending on the age or the size of the weeds. This means that this then requires the eye of the farmer to be able to determine the quantum of fluasphop to apply in your volume of water. For fluasphop, you can use your volume of 200 liters, maybe up to 250, 300, depending on the density of your weeds. If you've got dense weeds or overgrown weeds in your sugar bean crop, you then want to ensure that you get to about 8 liters per hectare, and then you do thorough coverage. Of course, fluasphop is a systemic product, but it is also important just to ensure that you've got good coverage of your fluasphop, so that you won't have any issues when you have adequate control of the grass weed. Then moving on to disease management, you've got your preventive fungicides, which you would want to apply. You can use your deleter. Deleter is a combination of azoxystrobin and difenoconazole to control rust. So deleter is a pretty good product which you would want to use. Then in terms of the control of bacterial blight is controlled by spraying copper oxychloride. And mancozeb as well is used to control your scab, black spot, and anthracnose. I'm sure that most of our horticultural farmers are conversant with these fungicides, but you can also use them in your disease management. So amongst these products, you cannot mix copper oxychloride with the earlier foliar fertilizers that I had mentioned, because it is not compatible with those foliar fertilizers. It is best to use maybe to mix your deleter and your mancozeb with any other foliar fertilizer of your choice. But now I'm not saying that we mix these products all together. you need to make a choice. You can apply these ones independently, but you can make a decision to say, this week I've sprayed deleter, maybe against rust, you might think might be coming in. Or the following week, you can then apply your mancozeb. Because once the environment is humid, once you've got excess moisture, as is currently happening because of the heavy rains that we are experiencing, disease incidence tends to be an issue. So you need to understand the products that you should be using. But now there is this wonderful product which I would want to elaborate to our farmers, the product called Apron Star. Apron Star protects your crop against early season pests and diseases. It is a seed dresser by nature. So what you do is that you spread basically per hectare of your sugar bean, you require 100 kgs. So that 10 gram sachet indicated, it treats 4 grams of seed. So that means for the 100 grams, 100 kgs of seed, you require 25 by 10 gram sachets of your Apron Star. So what does this do? What advantages does it have to the farmer? It protects your crop against early season pests and diseases. And the pests that I mentioned include your aphids, your bean stem maggot, your thrips, and for the diseases, that is your pythium root rot, where you tend to have roots that tend to rot right at the stem, where the stem meets at the ground, your downy mildew, your fusarium, etc. But now, maybe it's also I highlight to the farmers that once you have treated your seed with Apron Star, you may then not require to come in with a bean stem maggot, unless in cases where the field is heavily infested by the bean stem maggot. But diazinon, as a product that controls the bean stem maggot, requires you to come in with 4 sprays. So that tends to have an impact in terms of your spraying operations, because you remember, you still have to do your foliar applications, you still have to do your fungicide applications, and you want again to come in with your insect sprays. So instead of doing the 4 sprays of your diazinon, why not just apply your Apron Star just before planting? You use your hand planting, or you can even use a planter, and you are done with controlling bean stem maggot, which is a major pest in the control of your which is a major pest in sugar bean production. So you would have done a major cost saving when you have applied your Apron Star. You can imagine that Apron Star, just a 10 gram sachet, costs you about $1.50, and you would require about $37.50, and you are done. So this is a real deal, farmers, for you to consider, and it would be the best option for serious sugar bean farmers. Moving on to insect management, for the control of your cutworms, obviously you can come in with your lambda, fenferrelate, or even your chlorpyrifos. Then yes, sugar beans, indeed, they are also affected by red spider mites in some cases. And as well as to control your aphids, you can use your Aptara, your dimethoate, thunder, malathion, and your Apron Star. Remember, we said that your Apron Star is a seed dresser, so you coat your seed right before planting. Then for the control of your beetles, your crickets, your grasshoppers, you use the mighty Cabaru 85 wettable powder. Then for the bean stem maggot, like I highlighted and explained, is your Apron Star and your diazinon. Then for the Eleuthis bollworms and your leaf miners, you use your Ampligo, your belt, and your thunder. Then for the whiteflies, you use your Spike Extra, Actara, as well as your thunder. Ladies and gentlemen, this marks the end of my presentation. I leave the time over to Rollins. Thank you.
Many thanks, Dzidzai, for such a wonderful presentation. And you really touched on key issues there and practical advice on managing pests, weeds, and diseases, whilst also ensuring good soil health. So I'm sure farmers have gained a lot of actionable insights from your presentation. Now it's your turn, farmers. Let's dive into the interactive question and answer segment. Please do note that we have enabled our chat. So if you do have any question for Dzidzai, please do send through or please do type your questions in the chat. And remember, no question is too simple or too complex. So please do send through your questions. The first one that I have here, Dzidzai, it says, can I apply solely foliar fertilizers on sugar bean, or I have to apply both synthetic and foliar fertilizers?
Yes, you can, but the truth of the matter is that applying the foliar fertilizers alone is very, very expensive. So you'd rather go to do the route to do with your conventional fertilizers, then you supplement the nutrition using your what do you call it? Or you use in your foliar fertilizers. That would be the best you to supplement your conventional basal into dressing, and then come in with your foliar fertilizers later.
All right, thank you. Then what is the post-emergent herbicides for sugar bean? I think you touched on that one. Maybe they joined a bit late. If you can just recap.
For the control of broadleaf weeds, you can use your bentazone at 3 liters per hectare. Then for the control of grass weeds, you can use your fluazivir at an application rate of 1 to 8 liters per hectare, depending on the age of the weed.
All right, thank you. Then this one I think is for Dior. Dior has been trying to rejoin. It says, is it still okay to plant sugar beans now? Sorry, I joined a bit late. Yes, Shoko, is still okay to plant sugar beans now. Then the next question here says, what is the best herbicide for Shamva grass? I think that's for you, Dzidzai.
You can use your fluas for control the what you call it, the shamba grass. But now it is important for me to alert to farmers that we tend to have a challenge with nutsedge. Nutsedge, at the moment, we don't have any option that then to control it, completely control it. But now the bentazone suppresses the nutsedge. It only suppresses, and then later on it resumes growth.
All right, thank you. Then this question says, when is the latest date to plant beans in Rua Marondera region? I don't know, Dzidzai, if you can take that one. Dio has been trying to rejoin.
Well, what's important is just for the farmer to be to understand the forecast, the current weather forecast, and to do with the variety, because the different varieties have got different growing periods. So you would want a crop that would say mature within 90, 100, or 90 to 115 days. So it is best for the farmer to have that kind of knowledge before they make a decision.
All right, thank you. Then what is the extent to which pre-emergence? Okay, all right. This one says, okay, just hold on. I'm a bit confused. I once heard that herbicides require moisture to be effective. What then happens if it rains immediately after applying herbicides? Won't this wash away the chemical? Okay, if you can take that one, Dzidzai.
Okay, it depends with the nature of the herbicide. If it is your pre-emergence herbicide, if it rains afterwards, then it is a plus for you, because the herbicides will then be well incorporated within the soil solution, so that they are absorbed by the wheat seeds, and those seeds they will die off before they emerge. But if it is to do with the post-emergence herbicides, post-emergence herbicides have got what we call a rain fastness period. That is the time that should lapse after one is applied their post-emergence herbicide. So for some, you would require 6 hours. For some, you would require 8 hours, depending on the product. If it is a post-emergence herbicide and it rains in less than the stated period, chances are that you would have the herbicide washed off the leaves of your weeds. But now, maybe to also to as an advantage to the farmer, we've got a product called Sanawet, which is basically a wetter meant to ensure that we try to stick or adhere the herbicide molecules onto the weed seeds and minimize washing away because of the rains.
All right, thank you. Then in the event that there is a lot of rain and your beans are at flowering level, how best can I stop flowers from falling off? Is there a remedy for this, or it's a matter of timing?
It's a matter of timing, but we also need to come in with foliar fertilizers, like say your Best Bloom. Best Bloom promotes your flowering and reproduction. So yes, sometimes you might lose part of your yield because of the heavy rains, but also such products they promote development of flowers again, and you might not then lose out completely.
Oh, all right. Thank you. Then please confirm the name of the sticker that you mentioned and how it works.
Okay, it is called Sanawet. So Sanawet is available in 1 liter packs, which cost you just $15. And guess what? You can apply just 50 mils of Sanawet in your spraying mixture just to adequately cover 1 hectare. So 1 liter will do you a large acreage.
All right. So confirm it works for both herbicides and insecticides.
That is correct. Both herbicides, insecticides, and fungicides, which you may want to apply.
All right. Thank you. Then the next question says, in pest management, do you encourage application of prophylactic herbicides or to scout for infestation then treat? What would be your advice there?
Thank you. The best thing is to scout. Then we've got what we call economic injury levels. We don't just want to come in and spray herbicides or insecticides willy-nilly. If it is just maybe you've got thresholds, say if it is above maybe 30%, 10%, depending on the nature of the pest or depending on the intent of or on the gravity of your weed or density of your weed. So we encourage our farmers to do what we call integrated pest management. You do not want to kill your beneficial insects in the process of trying to control a minor insect that is in the particular field. So you'd want to do an IPM where you use your biological, chemical, etc. Kinds of methods to do with your pest management.
All right. Thanks, Dzidzai. Then, good morning. I note that on your presentations, there were about 4 types of sugar beans, 4 varieties, that is. Can one still apply the same principles that is on your presentation, Dzidzai, on all the varieties?
Yes. Depending on we can make adjustments depending on the demands of a particular variety. Some varieties they require more nutrients than the other. So this then can then be customized by the agronomist depending on the growing period of your variety, the targeted yield, etc. We then prescribe the nutrients according to the demands of that particular variety.
All right. Thank you, Dzidzai. You are tackling the questions as if you had them beforehand. Then at what point do we apply Sanawet, Dzidzai?
Okay, Sanawet is applied when applying when there is a threat to receive rains in a particular area. If you're applying some granulated products, if you're applying your insecticides, your herbicides, or even your fungicides, you can then apply your Sanawet. It's not only applied; it's applied when spraying your wheat seeds or even when applying onto the crop. We do not apply Sanawet only when we are applying your pre-emergence herbicides. We do not require the Sanawet in the soil.
All right. Thank you. Then can we also incorporate manure as part of our soil health plan?
Certainly, manure is quite beneficial. You can incorporate your manure. You can incorporate your biostimulants to complement the conventional fertilizers, and you'd have an improvement of your soil structure. You'd want to make sure that, and even sometimes you can do green manuring where you grow a crop and then till it back into the soil so that you have improved manure, or you'd want to crush back your stover, till it into the soil. You improve your carbon ratios in the soil and improve the soil structure.
Thank you, Dzidzai. Then the next question says, which crops can we rotate beans with in the same field? Is it advisable to intercrop beans in a maize field?
It is not advisable to intercrop maize in your maize field. Maybe if you've got a sloppy ground, yes, you can intercrop. Maybe you'd want to minimize runoff of your crop, but that will be the main purpose for intercropping, not to do with the yield. This is because when the maize crop is growing, you tend to have some shading, and there will be competition for sunlight, and the sugar bean will then be outcompeted. So if you want to have both, you can do a separate field, or they can just be bordering each other. You can do your sugar beans aside from your maize. Then in terms of the rotations, you can rotate your sugar bean crop with any other crop that is not in the legume family. So you can do your cucumber beans, you can do your brassicas, your solanaceous crops, etc. That will be a good rotation.
All right, thank you. Then the next one says, I have issues with termites that cut off from the roots underground, making it impossible to plant it. Or would you know how best I can control this?
Yeah, you can use a product called chlorpyrifos. You can apply 400 mils in 200 liters of water and drench over the affected area. Chlorpyrifos will do a good deal in controlling the termites.
All right, thank you so much. Dzidzai, if you can shout out your contacts. I see there are some questions that are still coming, but maybe because of our time, we can then advise farmers to engage you directly.
Okay, thank you. So my phone number is 0774 001 323. I'll repeat again, 0774 001 323. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. So we have sent Dzidzai's contact on the chat. Please do save his number for further engagement. We are also sharing with you Dior Pote's contact for further engagement. That is 0772 573 898. So we have also shared the contact on our chat. So please do take advantage of these contacts to ensure that you do the right thing. So as we wrap up, I would like to thank our presenters, Dior Pote from SeedCo and Dzidzai Caleb Munhutu from the ZFC. So Chokwadita Dzidza Zwakawanda. And thank you for sharing your expertise with us today. Farmers, please do take what you have learned and apply in your fields. And as someone said, knowledge is like a seed. It grows when nurtured. So if you would like to revisit today's training, the recording will be made available. So please do follow our social media platforms. Let's stay connected and keep an eye for future agribusiness media webinars. And thank you all for attending. Thank you so much, farmers, and to have a productive farming season. Thank you. And Dzidzai, would you have any shout out or any parting shot?
Thank you, dear farmers. Let us work together to build a nation, and we will achieve great yields. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So have a wonderful day, farmers. Thank you so much for joining in. Until next time, I'm Rawlings.